Mayuri Sharma, you were born and raised a devout Hindu from the Brahmin priestly caste, no less, but then you had a radical supernatural encounter with Jesus. But before we get to that, what did you think about Christianity before you got saved?
Yeah, so I grew up as a Hindu, as you mentioned. For us, Christianity was just, I guess, another discipline that a lot of other people practiced. I had no idea who Jesus was. I had no idea what Easter symbolized beyond the Easter bunny. I just thought Christianity and Christmas was just like a fun holiday with Christmas trees and gifts. I never understood the significance of it, which is crazy because when you talk to a lot of people around the world, the fact that I had an academic upbringing and things like this, you would think that I might have more of an understanding of Christianity than that. But we never knew anything about the cross or what it means or what resurrection means. And so it was just something that my parents always told me that, oh, other people practice this religion. And we were also told that Christianity was for, ironically, white people only. So we were kind of made to believe that Christianity was only for the American white population and that it's not really for us and that the Hindu gods are more relatable to us. So that was sort of my perception of Christianity, I guess, walking in that sure it could teach good things and sure the Bible could have good things, but I never knew anything about the saving power of Jesus or the Bible really much for that.
When it comes to your story, we were talking before we got started. You had some pretty wild things happen to you, some pretty supernatural things that eventually led you to Jesus. So, can you share with us what happened?
Yeah, so walking into this, I was going through a lot in my life and I was living apart even from Hinduism at the time. I was just thinking that I could go about life on my own and that I didn't need to get up and pray to God. And eventually when life started hitting really hard, I was like, "Oh, I need to get back right with God." Because we had this concept too in Hinduism that you have to pray every morning and get right with God. So I started praying and fasting to the Hindu idols and I was really getting into it. I was really getting super deep into it, and I was searching and searching for God. And finally, I had a friend who brought up the Bible to me and said, why don't you take a look at the Bible and see what's inside? And so initially, I was very, very hesitant, and I was like, oh, I think the Bible has great things, and I'm sure it's a great book, but I'm good where I'm at. I'm good with Hinduism. And so, after a lot of prayer and a lot of talking to me, finally I ended up opening the Bible. And what really drew me to the word was this that the people who were offering me the Bible didn't say, oh, let us prove to you Jesus. They said to me, ask Jesus if he's real and God yourself. Ask Jesus if he's actually God and if he's the one who really made you. So I started looking at the Bible and I prayed to Jesus and I said, Jesus, if you're real and God, give me dreams and visions that show you that, show me that you're actually God and you're really the only one there is. And after I did that, it was insane. I started getting dreams about Jesus. I started seeing visions about different things. I had a vision that I was blindfolded and that I was being led down a dark stairway, and that when I took off the blindfold, I looked at what I believe was Satan, and I was like, "Where are you taking me?" And then I had that kind of realization, like, "Whoa, I might be in the wrong thing." And before this, I never had any types of visions, any types of crazy dreams in my life. So to see all this happening now with the Bible, I was shocked to say the least. Um, and as I was reading the Bible, crazy things started happening where I remember the first time I opened the Bible, the lights started flickering in the room like I've never seen before in my life. And a lot of different things started happening to me where one time I had people come over and they prayed with me. And this was my first time ever praying with the Bible. And I thought it would just be, just like Hinduism, where, we say a few nice things and that's about it. But when they prayed over me, I felt instant fire throughout my body like I'd never felt before. I felt like I was going to pass out. There was so much fire. And I remember I closed my eyes and I saw a demon burning, which was, I guess, quite horrifying for me. And then I saw Jesus standing over that demon. And I was like, whoa, Jesus is God. This is really happening. I can't believe this is happening. I was fully sober, fully alert. And I was like, what is happening? Does this happen every time people pray in Christianity? So I was shocked, to say the least. Then I kept closing my eyes, and they were praying that, that God would sever any ties of things that were not for me. And when I closed my eyes and I looked, I saw ropes hanging severed, and I saw Jesus with a white light on the cross. And I remember just walking away from that experience, and I was like, how come no one's ever told me about Jesus? How come no one's ever told me about the Bible? Because this is unlike astrology. This is unlike anything that Hinduism claims is powerful. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And so then I started taking the Bible seriously. I took away all the idols in my home, which was a huge step for me because they were family idols. They've been passed down, for generations throughout my family. But I took the chance and I said, Jesus, if this is you, you're extending your hand to me, I'm going to meet you right where you're at. I'm going to extend my hand back. So I took the leap of faith. I threw away all the idols in my home, and I started reading the Bible seriously. And I didn't get through much of it, but I did step out in faith. I had people praying for me. I had a pastor in India praying for me. I hadn't read the whole Bible because the people who were helping me through it, they were saying to me, well, it's not about reading the whole Bible. It's not about taking all this time or confirming 100% whether it's real or not, because it does require faith. It does require that you step out in faith. And one day I did step out in faith, and I said, well, I don't have the protection of God. If these idols aren't true, I don't have the protection of God. So I ended up praying the prayer and taking the chance and coming to Jesus. And I remember when I closed my eyes, I saw a stairway leading to heaven, and I saw angels going
Wow.
up and down. Yeah, it was crazy. I saw angels going up and down the stairway, and I didn't even know this was a part of the Bible, but later, after I started reading it more seriously, I saw in John 1:51, it says that Jesus is the stairway from earth to heaven, and that the angels go up and down on the Son of Man. So, it was a crazy thing for me to see that. And I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it, you know?
Wow, that's extraordinarily encouraging. Thank you for sharing that
Yes,
wild testimony. I
yes,
think for a lot of folks, Hinduism is just kind of this wild card, right? I
yes,
think a lot of folks understand from a Christian perspective how to have discussions with atheists,
yeah,
or even like Islam is, the two have clashed a lot, even here in the United States. And so there's an awareness, even if it's very surface level, of Allah and Muhammad
yes,
and the Quran. And there's like at least a basic understanding, obviously, with Judaism. But with Hinduism, it's like just this total vacant understanding.
yes.
I guess the question might be is, how does one evangelize a Hindu? Obviously, half of my family to this day is Hindu. My whole dad's side of the family comes from India, and it's always been this like weird thing for me, when it's like, hey, like there's only, Jesus is the way, he's the truth and the life, and it's like, we'll add him, like we'll celebrate Christmas, like
Yeah,
it's not the same way with Islam, right? There's this hard break,
yep,
at least from my experience, and there's shame that comes on the family, and you're kicked out. With
yeah,
Hinduism, it's like, add Jesus to the mix. Come on in, Jesus. And there's almost like just, there's no threat, I guess you could say.
yeah.
But the idea of saying, no, 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 he's not just like part of the crew. He is the way, the truth, and life. How does one evangelize a Hindu?
Yeah, so this is I guess I would say the great part about a lot of Hindus is that they're very open minded. That's kind of how I was raised, and that's part of the reason why I ended up even looking at the Bible. So they kind of have, I guess, and I did too, kind of a blended theory since they have a lot of gods, where they think that what's offensive for them is saying that Jesus could be the only God. But they're open to the idea of there being multiple gods, that Jesus is a good teacher. So I guess appealing to their academic ideologies and how intelligent they are and how, I guess, open minded they are. And you could probably get a lot of Hindus to open the Bible simply by talking a lot about what Jesus teaches. And then later on, showing the importance logically of why it's important to only select Jesus. Because Jesus, well, none of their gods ever resurrected. So Krishna, which is one of their gods, he was shot in the foot with an arrow, right? And he wasn't perfect like Jesus. He lived a life with, he was lying, there was a lot of sin. So he wasn't perfect as Jesus. So really showing them the distinction of why Jesus is unique, because he did rise from the dead and he was perfect and he did live a sinless life. And also, I guess what was unique for me was, most people wouldn't expect this, but the book of Exodus was particularly important for me. The only reason I knew the Exodus story was because when I was young, I happened to see a movie called The Prince of Egypt. And so I had.
Great, great movie, by the way.
Yes, yes. That was like, I think a teacher when I was growing up, that was really pivotal for me, because I remembered this story of how there was a clash between, polytheistic gods and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so I remembered that story. And when I was investigating the Bible, it was actually one of the first books I read, because Hindus understand that their gods can do miracles, but you have to show them that yes, fake gods can do miracles, but they can't move the same way that our God can. They can't part the Red Sea.
Come on.
Yeah, they can't part the Red Sea. They can't, predict a future for a people as God did for Israel, you know? And I think a lot of Hindus are called, I think of the verse Isaiah 45:4, where it says, God is talking to Cyrus. He says, "You don't know me, but I call you by name for my people
Oof.
Israel." So I think of this verse, and I think that a lot of Hindus, they would do so well as Christians, because they have the discipline, they have the foundational understanding of that we should serve God and only God, but they don't realize that we need to direct that passion towards Jesus. And if they did, well, that could be a Cyrus calling for all of them.
Wow, wow, that is really powerful stuff, my friend. Obviously, we're gonna have to have you back on because this Hindu discussion is so fascinating to me. Your family is from northern India, from Punjab, if I'm correct.
Yes,
Is that true?
yes, yes.
Okay, so my dad's side of the family is from Kerala. So this
Okay.
conversation is three quarters Indian. So we're almost there.
Yes.
But hey, you've been an enormous encouragement and very insightful. So yeah, we're gonna have to have you back on because I think understanding the Hindu view of theology and how to share Jesus with Hindus is so important. So again, we're gonna have to have you back on. But as for now, my friend, God bless and thanks again.
God bless you. Take care.